Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another movie spoiler review. My first movie spoiler review of the year, New Year. Happy New Year. And it is, as promised, Batman Year 1. I wanted to fit this in with all the other Batman stuff that I was doing. There's so many Batman stuff, I couldn't fit them all in time while I was doing like Christmas movie reviews and then doing all the Spider-Man movie reviews to catch up with No Way Home. So I decided to space out other Batman movies, well, animated wise, and of course I will eventually get to the Batman with Robert Pattinson. Uh, should be like in a couple of months. So, matter of fact, when is that coming out again? Because Matt Reeves the Batman. March 4th. Yeah, it is in a couple of months. So, yeah, I'm not tripping. Because they've been moving a lot of these movies every which way. They just moved Morbius from January. It's supposed to come out this week, but they had to move it just a fear of the Omicron variant. They move it to April Fool's Day of all days. So during the month of my birthday, I got to watch Morbius movie, Shazam, and Sonic the Hedgehog. 3 movies all in 1 year. I mean, all in 1 month. My goodness. Anyway, pardon the pop filter. Earlier today, I had to do some voiceover auditions, and I just figured I might as well leave this on. There's gonna be more auditions, and I got some feedback from them earlier because I had to redo a lot of my auditions for this particular project for these auditions, and because I guess, which I should have considered a long time ago, Mike was kind of like close to my face, so it's kind of like not like a bursting. It's kind of like, it is like a loud popping kind of situation. And I should have had my pop filter on a long time ago, but it's nice to know now I know better. And knowing is half the battle. Anyway, now on to the movie review. Now, this is arguably not only a good. I will eventually do the comic review of Batman Year One, but the comic and this is a solid story piece of Batman's early tales, and arguably is kind of based, like Batman Begins kind of based itself on Batman Year One in a sense, where it's like you just catching in with Bruce coming back from being 12 years overseas. During this time, he was learning like all the skills to be Batman. All these different martial arts, escapology, ninjutsu skills, or just ninja skills. Stealth, all that stuff. And then like all the science. Things that he doesn't know already, and just to make him like just one of the best superheroes known to man. And so he's flying in through a private jet, which you can hear this inner monologue. Now, by the way, he's voiced by Ben McKenzie, who played James Gordon on the Gotham TV show several years back. And I like him as an actor, and he's like a great actor. I like Ben McKenzie. And they got Bryan Cranston playing James Gordon in this, and he's they both pretty solid. It's probably like arguably the two. Well, Selena Kyle's in this, and she's played by Eliza Dushku, who I've seen her in things. She was apparently Faith from Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel TV show, and like it always, I don't know why it's always surprised me. I always like Faith, in that show, but it's amazing how far times have changed. It's been so many years. Anyway, uh, by stark contrast, as Bruce is flying overhead, which he, I won't say despises, but he's kind of like, he feels uncomfortable. I can never say that freaking word. I always got teased by my ex about me saying that word. Just the way to say uncomfortable. As he's flying over the city, and he's like looking down. Well, he just rather just being a muck of it all in Gotham. He's coming back to Gotham after so many years being abroad, after the whole situation with his parents, getting gunned down. He wants to be in the thick of it, the grime of Gotham. Well, Gordon, as he's coming into Gotham, he's riding on a train while like he's in the muck, and he's just like, just hates what he's looking at. And he's glad that his pregnant wife, is flying in rather than coming in with him, seeing all this mess, while he's regretting in the first act about like having a child, because he just does not want to raise a child in a city like this. So he's getting brought in. Obviously, it's like a major transfer, because as he speaks on later in the film, how like, to Detective Sarah, who what's her last name? Sarah Essen, who is like a minor, I don't say minor, but somewhat of a supporting character in the Batman comics. She assists the Bat family from time to time. But he talks to her about like, why he's in Gotham. He roughly hints at the fact that he helped pull away a lot of bad cops, and cops never like cops who rat out other cops, kind of situation. So he's talking to Commissioner Loeb, who is corrupt. This is Gotham. We're talking about early days of Gotham, where it's filled with like corruption. And then you got Detective Flash, and it's funny how like a character like this, who's haven't been in the Batman comics in quite some time, since year one. I think he showed up for Batman Eternal for a stint, because it's very like a minor role, but he only showing up like at least a couple of times throughout the DC universe years. And he's basically showing Jim like the ropes, and you can tell like he's asserting his dominance in a way. He's kind of like one of those douchebag kind of frat boys that push kids around in high school, and so he got a job so he can still do that in a way. So he's, obviously Gordon is the lieutenant, and he'd rather be called that by Flash, but Flash just trying to not only impose his superiority, but also trying to demoralize Jim by calling him Jimmy. Yeah, I can call you Jimmy, right, Jimmy? And of course, he stops on the street corner. These teens are just, you can argue they are roughly teens, maybe in their early 20s, just hanging out around a burning trash can, just mind their own business. And Flash just goes over, beats up one of the kids, takes off this seemingly switchblade. It turns out to be just like a pocket comb, and he tells Gordon like, "Only human, Jimmy." And you can tell, like, because you can hear like, because you only get two inner monologues, and it's like, the movie kind of shares the screen time and separate story beats with Gordon and Batman. And Gordon, in a monologue, you hear him, was like, just wait, be patient, just watch him. And so he buys the time to, because he wants to take down all this corruption, but he cannot go half-cocked. He gotta make sure he picks his moments. And while Bruce is just biding his time, trying to figure out, he got, like he mentions, he got the means, he got the skills, but he's just missing that one crucial tidbit that really put that nail in that coffin. And he's trying to figure that out. He goes on this seemingly kind of like, not a stakeout in a way, just like he's undercover. He's like pulling his makeup, like like a good master of disguise is another skill he has. It's like a good master of disguise where he changes his features, not too crazy, but just enough to this kind of reminds me of Ocean's 11 when Rusty, played by Brad Pitt, talks to Matt Damon's character as to having to put on a disguise and talk with like the head of the hotel they're gonna rob. And he's like, okay, to play this part, you're gonna have to be funny, but not too funny. He's gotta like you and then forget you, kind of situation. It's kind of like that. You gotta be in his, just the first layer of his mind, and then as soon as you leave, he doesn't want to think about you anymore. So he gives us up this kind of discernible scar, so that when people will remember, most likely remember the scar, but just everything else is pretty much generic. He can be just about anybody. So he doesn't want to be recognized as Bruce Wayne. So he walks down the East End where he sees all these strip malls. Well, not strip malls, strip as in literal strip malls. You got all these clubs and stripper clubs and bars and just like it's kind of like Vegas, like the most seedy part of Vegas almost. And you get to introduce to Celina Cowell, who in this version is pretty much like a dominatrix in a way. And not feeling the hair, like the cut hair, because she's fully shaven, but like like a just cut. And I'm not feeling that because of course Selena has different hairstyles over the years. One time the shortest I ever felt comfortable with her hair being short is about the look of Storm from the X-Men movie, the third movie. It's about that short that I'm feeling comfortable with Selena Kyle's hair to be. Any shorter than that is just off-putting, in my opinion. But you also get to introduce to Holly, who not many people know is, Selena Kyle has a little sister named Holly. She, showing up here and there throughout the comics. Sometimes as like a sidekick to Catwoman. Other times she just, never mentioned or just off doing her own thing and not involved with Selena's business. And this girl is like, you can argue, say she's bare minimum 18, but still she's got a young kid and he's like turning tricks, and it's like you can tell, like Bruce is like how old are you? It's like I'm about as young as you want me to be, kind of situation. It's kind of gross, and you can tell how bad Gotham's gotten, where you got these kids turning tricks, and it's just disturbing as hell. So then the pimp comes in, starts messing with Holly. Bruce comes in, steps in trying to defend her. He kicks his ass, and then all of a sudden Holly comes in and stabs him in the leg. And it's like, she just not realizing that, or at least Gotham's gotten so bad to the point where it's foreign for somebody to step into the help. And, she obviously just think like he just got like an agenda or something. And then two cops come in, try to subdue the situation, right when Bruce is trying to take on the whole freaking neighborhood as everybody's trying to jump in and take him down after he's trying to like just stop one simple pimp. And then Selena comes jumping down and goes mano a mano with him. Cops come in, shoots Bruce, like after they say freeze, and like nobody moved, but then one of the cops just shoots him anyway. Cops be copping. And he just says like, well, he was going to move anyway. So as they haul him in a squad car, Bruce breaks free, crashes the car, but rescues the cops. And I love this line where this is true to like all heroes. It's like they may be scum, but even scum have families. So just to like remind himself that, just like he's not going to be one of them, because he will go out his way to make sure they still live. So he pulls him out before the car blows up. Then he, while losing a bit of blood from the shoulder wound as he got shot, he haphazardly drives back to the mansion. Now I'm flip-flopping a bit, but this is going at the same time as as Gordon is doing his job as a proper cop, bringing in, bad cops. He's giving people lectures about ethics and everything like that, and pretty much like Flash telling Loeb about this, and then Flash, while masked in like ski masks with a bunch of his little buddies, and beats up Jim in like the parking garage, and then threatened to go after his wife the next time. And of course, not sitting well, he drives off at the same direction as Bruce is coming in, so they almost crash into each other and they pass each other. And Gordon goes in, and while Flash is over having like a poker game, he steps out, he follows Flash until he finds like a secluded place, and then kicks Flash's ass because he's like military trained, and strips him naked, ties him up, and leave him there, and knowing that he won't report this because excuse me, knowing that he won't report this in so because he just gonna blame on like a bunch of people just beat him up, but he doesn't want to think that he got like jumped by just one old man, because just like the whole toxic masculinity just like it permeates in this one character. Just like you want like the ideal picture of a toxic masculinity, look to this character in this movie. That's Detective Flash, or former Detective Flash. And while Bruce goes dang near crashes into his own home, he walks into his father's study, sitting in the chair looking at the bust of his father, and he's just thinking to himself like, what do I need to do, Father? How do I make them afraid? And as he's pondering this, he doesn't want to ring the bell to call Alfred to fix him up, because he just want to sit there until he figures it out finally, because weeks goes by ever since that Gordon and Bruce comes into Gotham as they're like preparing to make moves, and it's like he hasn't figured out like that thing until a bat comes crashing into the house. Then he gets the clue. Then it's like, that's what I need. So some time goes by, and he finally comes up with a costume, and then his first move in his first night as Batman, He and I like this costume because it's like definitely like a year. It would be year one Batman costume because without the fancy tech and everything like that, because he hasn't gotten to that point. Usually, people complain about Batman's fancy tech, like, oh, he's just Batman Iron Man or Iron Man Batman kind of situation, and it's like he's about as smart as Iron Man, so it's well probably not as smart, but dang near to the point where he will come up like when he come across certain situations that he needs to get out of or at least combat the next time he runs into it, he has to have a tech, a piece of tech that he needs to combat that. So of course, current day in Batman comics, he has, well, not in recent comics, they kind of scaled him back, him and Iron Man to a certain extent in like in the past like few months they have scaled back Batman and Iron Man because the whole rich white guy situation and they're trying to apply the whole real world scenario. It's like I want to apply it to like woke culture or anything like that. It's just that it's just like answering to like what's going on in real world. People don't trust rich guys and using their like wealth like just like I don't want to say irresponsibly, but it's not like to the expectations of the everyman. And so they kind of apply that to Batman and Iron Man, scaling them back, not making them as rich, or giving them that kind of access. It's kind of the same thing what they did with like Doctor Strange from time to time when he gets a run. They gotta scale back his powers or take them away altogether without him getting some kind of leg up. And like I don't like that. These guys in their inception are meant to be, rich white guys who use a wealth to combat bad guys, and like taking that back. I mean, like they're long past the early days of their career. At this point, there's like I'm off on a tangent, but it's kind of like personally gets in my craw. It's just like Danny Rand's situation with Iron Fist. He's rich, not to the same extent, but he's still relatively rich. But people woke culture, whatever, blah blah blah. They get on the whole thing with Iron Fist, like, oh, he's just a white guy who uses Eastern martial arts to like is taking he's a cultural appropriation kind of situation. Look, anybody who can't learn martial arts is not exclusive to the Asian community, or at least whom in the Asian community who have learned that skill. Like in the comics during the time of the 70s where martial arts movies was all the rage, he was created as like which he's like a kid at the time, but he's got adopted by the people of Kowloon who taught him that stuff, who he refers to as his masters of Eastern descent, to teach him all this skill, and he worked hard to be the best. He didn't get spoon-fed to him. He worked his ass off. And so it's just foolhardy of people to give people like this, characters like this, shit for what they were created to be from the jump, and what they mean to people in the long run. Because it's not like the same thing what they're doing with the Punisher currently, because some assholes in real life appropriated the skull Punisher symbol into their false ideals of what they think America should be, and it kind of ruined the character for a lot of people because it's a whole thing. Now he doesn't have the skull symbol anymore in recent Punisher comics. So it's like woke culture kind of like really screwed with a lot of our characters. Not saying like woke culture ain't done some good stuff, but when going too far, it kind of makes it kind of takes some of the oomph out of some of these characters. Anyway, going off on a tangent. Because like this is like early is year one Batman, so he doesn't have all the gadgets yet, but he eventually will, depending on what crisis he's handling in the future, and eventually he has to upgrade. He can't have the same old stuff because eventually he'll get killed. If he doesn't know how to adapt and evolve. Same thing with Iron Man. He has to upgrade his tech eventually because, it's like I got this smartphone right here, right? Imagine me, 2022, still holding a goddamn those big giant 80s phones. It's kind of like that. It's like, can you imagine somebody telling me like, oh, these phones are too high tech. We need to scale them back to the cell phones back in the 80s. How lame would that be? You know what I mean? Anyway, I like this costume, for this a particular year of Batman. Within 2 years, he'll be like, more advanced, given the threats he's facing. But he's on the roof seeing these people trying to steal, TV and other electronics out of his apartment. He jumps down, scares the crap out of them, but he kind of haphazardly got the beat them up and took them down. But he dang near almost let one fall off the side of the building, and the others were like got the jump on him, but he managed to take them down. And he's just like, amateur, because he's relatively new at this. Even Batman out the gate wasn't perfect. Batman now would have easily taken him out without any sweat, honestly. But these rookie mistakes that, you can let slide. He still got the job done. But as the weeks go on, you see him progressing to the point where he sees, like, after, the head honchos come down on Gordon trying to catch Batman, he's trying to set up these traps after they figure out, okay, he operates between the hours of midnight to 4 a.m., and so he goes with these sting operations, not sting operation. I don't know if you call it a sting operation, but traps. As he having like Sarah, being pretend mugged and getting chased by a dude with a knife, and Batman's just watching him in the shadows, realizing yes, he's screaming really loud, like so everybody can hear, and like. She knows how to walk in heels. It's just he got to the point where he knows, between an actual mugging and something's like an obvious setup. But it's also like because Flash getting beat up, he's like, taking bribe money from criminals who are pushing drugs and stuff like that, and he shows up telling his tale while. He's in like a neck brace and everything like that because Batman beat the shit out of his ass. So, Gordon believes, okay, he goes to Harvey Dent, who he believes, because if you watch my comic book spoiler review of Batman The Long Halloween, you can check that out on the channel, which, by the way, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl. Follow me in the links in the descriptions, and you can definitely check out my Batman The Long Halloween review. As in one of the comic book panels, he mentions how like I forgot where I was going with this. Holy crap. Got neck brace, beat him up. Harvey Dent. How like it was on a rooftop during the moment when they was trying to take down the Falcone family. Gordon mentions how like, for one, there was a time when I thought you was Batman. And this will be probably like a year before the events of the Long Halloween, because Carmine Falcone is in this, but only like he's not a major thing. He's just part of, because I think arguably the cops, or at least Commissioner Loeb, is the major villain technically, and Carmine Falcone and his thugs are like kind of side villains in this, because Batman's just focusing on cleaning up corruption in general and fighting like corrupt police. But it was like an awesome. One of my favorite scenes in this entire film is where you got Loeb eating this fancy food among the other rich and powerful of Gotham, with a few of the criminal element, like Carmine Falcone, who he pretty much got everybody in his pocket, and you got all these other rich yuppies, and Batman comes crashing in and is given like probably the best scene and best lines out of the entire film. And it's like, you eating Gotham's wealth. You eating Gotham's wealth. But the feast is almost over. From this moment on, none of you are safe. It's just, something like that, but it's just like one of my favorite lines in the entire film, and it's like the most badass Batman moment where he just like, because he got this little, kind of like this, I don't know, kind of like food where it's like, the chef's lighting up with fire and it's blazing, this kind of delicacy, but as the lights going out, it's the only thing lighting up the room as Batman just coming in from the shadows and just speaking in this like, deep gravelly voice, and just scaring everybody to shit. And he's putting out the fire as like the lights dim on his creepy cowl, and it's like, none of you are safe. And it's like, and just disappears, and it's scary. Like, it probably would be like the scariest shit you ever seen in your life. And you would definitely forget Batman is a guy in a costume, but he knows how to use scare tactics. You will scare yourself shitless of like this Batman is sneaking up on you in that costume. Fuck, man. Because I remember playing Batman Arkham Knight, as you had like a brief moment playing as Jim Gordon, going to this second Batcave thing that Batman fixed up a long time ago. It's like a second base of operations, and he's coming in there and looking over some stuff, and he turns around and you turn around and you see Batman just walking behind you. It's like, whoa, what the? That when I first, matter of fact, I expected that when I first played this, because I previously watched another person's walkthrough of it. This is years ago, and like, I didn't expect that from watching somebody else playing it. And so as soon as they turn around, it's like, you see, just Batman saying like, what the fuck, man? And it's like, it made my heart jump, because like, holy shit, did not expect that. Oh my God. And it's like, that game had like a handful of jump scares, man. So when I first played it, I knew to expect it, but still, I had my eyes kind of like looked over as just trying to turn around so you can just do the thing, because I do not want to see that, because I don't know why it makes my heart race, because I do not want to have a freaking heart attack because of Batman. Anyway, so while working with Detective Essence, she theorized, okay, you haven't lived. It's always been like, well, even in the comics, it's said that Detective Gordon originally grew up in Chicago. He was, born in Chicago, but eventually he transferred to Gotham. But it's always been touchy whether or not, like, some writers might, have him as like a Gotham might, born and raised, and some write him as, he wasn't born in Gotham, but he came from like someone like Chicago and moved to Gotham kind of situation. But she says, oh, you haven't been in Gotham that long. So you don't know the story with Bruce Wayne. His parents died when he was a little kid, and eventually he kind of like left. He eventually came back. He's a little older now, and Batman's the gadgets he's used, the skills he has, and all this stuff. And it's like it's hard to do like the things that Batman does. It's hard to do on like a DA salary, so it can't be Harvey Dent. So we need to take a look at Bruce. So while they come into that kind of theory, uh, there's like almost like a crash with like an unconscious guy behind the truck wheel of a truck, almost hitting like an old lady. But Batman swoops in, saves the old lady while Gordon, stops the truck. Of course, then they got Batman Dead to Rights. Sarah got Batman Dead to Rights. While she got distracted checking on Jim, Batman kind of knocks her out as he's running off, and of course, eventually other cops come by. They give chase. They got him cornered in this abandoned building where there's like a drunk, unconscious winos living there, and then all of a sudden, like these SWAT team members dropping bombs on this building, and it's like end up killing any homeless winos that's living there, or at least was sleeping there for shelter. Batman losing his like utility belt in the fire, and he only got like a few things on hand. He still ends up kicking a lot of SWAT members' ass, while utilizing that same method from Batman Begins, using this remote control to call in a bunch of bats to swarm the area so he can make his escape. But then Gordon and Sarah just having like a coffee, and like then they end up having like an affair. He, just because like Gordon's been like a hero cop for the past month or so, all eyes on him. They can't make a Loeb and the others can make a direct move on him without raising suspicion. So they decided, okay, we'll just blackmail him because they got eyes on him at all times apparently, and they got pictures of him making out with Sarah, threatening to tell his wife. Now, while him and his wife is taking like a detour from the hospital to go talk to Bruce Wayne, and he's, of course, Wayne's, been on like a ski trip, and he, got into like an accident, so all his like wounds and everything like that is covered up by like cast and what have you, and he put on this facade, having this mysterious lady just like barely clothed, not saying a word, and then he just put on this like, oh, she doesn't speak any English, and he's pretending to be drunk, but it's not like real liquor. And while Gordon's questioning him, he's of course we don't see hear all the answers, or the questions and answers, but just obviously he kind of gave them a story. And so as they're driving off, Gordon comes clean about the affair because, Sarah at this point is pretty much like long gone after, Gordon wanted to end this whole thing because it's just not going to be good for his marriage in the long run. It's not fair. It's wrong. Because even then you see that as good as Gordon is, as like a righteous man Gordon is, he's still fallible. He's still human. He still falls prey to certain needs and desires. As much as he's like got a strong will, he's not perfect, and I like that because even some people still fall every once in a while. But he knows when to like do the right thing in the end. So he calls it quits. She decides, well, I'm just gonna go for a transfer. I do not want to make things like worse or awkward kind of situation. And so even when like he's still pressing on doing his duty as a good cop, people, mysterious people giving, his house a call, talking about like, did you know about like the, situation between Gordon and Sarah, and you know, Mrs. Gordon's like, yeah, I know about Detective Essence. Please don't call her again. And you can just the look, and it's beautifully drawn in certain. I don't love the animation in this, but there's certain moments that like really captured the moment, and it's like I really thought it was a very a good striking image. It's where like you see her just a sullen look on her face as she's like, yeah, I know. Please don't call her again. Like he pretty much cut, the whole. He took the what's the word? He got ahead of it, and so their threats mean nothing. He already came clean. So they don't have any ammo at this point. But as soon as he hangs up the phone, the way the camera just pans over, and you see like you don't see Gordon's eyes, but it's all the glass is all in white, and it's just the look on his face, that painful look on his face, says it all. Just great drawing and art, just to be able to express without saying nothing. Just show don't tell. It's just like he just feels like a gut punch that he's got to put his wife through this mess because his his screw up is causing her pain. Despite him coming clean, which was the right thing to do, you can still feel like that painful look on his like, I put this in motion. Shouldn't have even done it in the first place, and she wouldn't even be through this. But just all that is just on his face, and I just love that. Just love the look of that scene. Eventually, you get moments with Selena, who decides to take matters in her own hands, thinking like, doing this, turning tricks and cutting it ain't paying the bills. We need to do more. So she decides to, with the inspiration of Batman, she spent the last of her and Holly's money to pay for this Catwoman suit, and which is, I honestly, one second. Now, I can buy she knows how to fight, but the skills that Catwoman has took time to learn, and she somehow is able to do these agile kind of moves, and it's like, okay, you can do all this stuff, and yet you chose to be a dominatrix, and it's just like, I don't know. I question that, but she's just jumping out the window doing these like, oh, she's Catwoman now, so just do Catwoman stuff now, and it's like, okay, where did that come from? And so she decides to start stealing from like Loeb and everything like that, but there was, there's no money from what she stole. But then she decided to like steal from Carmine Falcone, and decides, I want to be recognized, because she wants to be the famous Catbooker, the famous Catwoman, the one of the best iconic thieves in comic book history. She decided, I'm going to leave my mark, and she hints that leaving a scratch on Carmine Falcone's face, who in the comics always had this discernible scar, which was left by Catwoman. And she wants to be separate from Batman's doings. So, as Batman is spying on Carmine Falcone, trying to find out any secrets or plans of his that he's got going on so he can disrupt it, Catwoman shows up, gets, busted, and Batman has to save her from being gunned down right before he gets the juicy, details. And, but she doesn't want to leave until she leaves that scar, which inadvertently caused Falcone to be like, okay, screw it all. I want that Batman. I want all bets are off. He wants to go after Batman, this Catwoman, and he more, importantly, Gordon. So he tells his nephew to go after the kid to bring Gordon to him so they can kill them both. So as Gordon goes after the people after they kidnap the baby, Bruce eventually gives chase after he's figured out what Falcone's next move is, which is going after Gordon through his kid. They, Gordon and they end up all driving, doing this car chase all the way to the Gotham Bridge, and as Gordon's tussling with the nephew, trying to get to his kid, and kid eventually topples over to the side. Bruce comes out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but he makes it in time to go off the edge of the bridge, catches the baby, and saves the baby in time. And Gordon catches up after taking down the nephew, and because he doesn't have his glasses on from the tussle, he's not recognizing who saved his kid. And he knows that, okay, that's obviously Batman, but it kind of leans into the whole thing with Gordon in the comics in the past, well, for a handful of years, probably for a pretty arguably long time, that you can argue that certain characters know the hero's identity, but it's just like play along kind of situation. Like they'll tell them when they're ready kind of situation. Gordon, being like one of the best detectives in comic books, well, it could be argued that he probably figured out who Batman is. Matter of fact, in the past, because there's a Joker book, but it's actually a Jim Gordon comic book run that's been going on in the past few months, where it was like a second or third issue of it, where Oracle, Batgirl, or Barbara Gordon, his daughter, was talking with like Batman and Gordon through like communications electronically, and I forgot the context, but basically Jim Gordon says like, let me talk to my daughter kind of situation. Pretty much like just blurting out just because they feel like Gordon's gonna figure out something or do something that's like he's trying to throw them off by, okay, I need to throw them off somehow just to get them off my scent from doing something that they're gonna end up stopping me from doing. So I'm just gonna do this dramatic thing. Let me talk to my daughter. Just pretty much undercutting it and saying like, I know who Batgirl is, or I know who Oracle is, depending on how you want to write Batgirl in a particular way. So it's argued. You can argue saying like, he knows who Batman is. He just playing along. But he's pretty much like, I'm practically blind without my glasses. I just want to say thank you. So Bruce hauls ass out of there, and during the course of the third act, Batman's dealing with like Flash and other criminal punks who can turn on Loeb so that he can be brought up on racketeering charges, which eventually he has. So he's been like relieved of duty, and Gordon's been promoted to captain at this point. And so it ends with him on a rooftop waiting for Batman as he hints at the Joker, which is kind of like Batman Begins, hitting at the Joker, poison the Gotham Reservoir, which is in the Batman the Animated Series, the first episode with the Joker is him poisoning Gotham's reservoir. In the comics, that is, just like in the comics as well. In the first appearance of the Joker in comic book history, he's trying to poison the Gotham Reservoir. That is his first criminal act in history. The next will be like the trying to trademark laughing fish kind of situation. it's funny how I still remember that all throughout all these years. But I think it's thanks to the Batman the Animated Series, because I watched that a lot as a kid. Still do from time to time. Um, Eventually, I want to do like a TV show review of that show. Like I said, some time out for that some point in the future. Not currently on the docket right now. But yeah, that pretty much ends the movie. I honestly think it's solid. Like the art is okay. It didn't blow me away, except for a few scenes. The voice acting is okay. Aside from characters like, Bryan Cranston, Ben McKenzie, and the shoot, I'm about to call her Faith, but Eliza Dushku. Aside from those three, who are nobly great actors, uh, just like, other than that, the voice acting was okay. It's just a very average movie, isn't it? When it came out, people were expecting like Under the Red Hood level of quality, and uh it'll be ignorant, or at least naive, to think. Yeah, naive is the right word. It'll be naive to think that you should expect Under the Red Hood with every Batman animated film to come out. Sometimes it's just middle of the road, okay Batman movie. So anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of Batman Year One. How high do you rank it as far as your favorite Batman animated films? And I honestly say, because I haven't seen all the Batman animated films, like I haven't seen Hush, but I think that's like choose your own adventure. I don't like that idea. It was a dumb idea, to be honest with you guys. I want to eventually see Long Halloween. It's like a two-parter situation. And eventually I will get to Under the Red Hood, which is, still freaking good. But look out for those in the future. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Take care. Be well.